Good evening, everyone. Welcome to LFC Transfer Room. I'm here tonight, joined by Dan, Patricio, and Craig to discuss, I would say, the latest developments around the Liverpool Football Club. But tonight, I wanted to get into something else. As like at the beginning of the season, I think we've talked a lot about depth, about transfers, about us being maybe dissatisfied with some lack of depth, let's say. But as it looks, I think everyone, yeah, started off strong here. But as it looks, we started off a bit better than I think everyone else expected it. At least I did. So I thought it would be interesting to get into this topic again and revisit it with a bit more of a balanced view, maybe. But until then, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, please. If you're over on Twitter, on X, if I may, please do come over to YouTube and subscribe to the channel. We are going to be streaming pretty much every day, 7:30 p.m. UK time, and sometimes after the games always after the games as well. Until we get into the topics, Dan, how's your evening, mate?
It's perfectly fine, Mihai. You know, we always enjoy talking about depth and transfers here, especially during the summer windows when we're also passionate and level-headed at the same time when it comes to Liverpool Football Club. Even today, you know, talking about previous transfers in the past, we always love to verbosely articulate that if we had just signed one more player, we would have won thousands more trophies under Jurgen Klopp. Because you know it's always the one player, it's always the backup left back, you know, that wins you the title, or the eighth choice midfielder, or the seventh choice defender, you know, that wins you those titles. I'm just happy to be here. You know, I'm excited. I'm actually ready for this international break to be over, and I'm ready to play some real games of football now, and not against mid tier, mid tier Premier League dross. Apart from Nottingham Forest, which is I think they're the highest ranked team we've played so far in our league. Sadly, we lost them at home, so ignore that part. But yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited for it to be back because we have Chelsea on Sunday, don't we?
Yes, we do.
I'm ready.
And
I'm ready to smash Chelsea all over the park because they look mad, and it's gonna be at Anfield too. So if we can get a solid 3-0, 8-0 on XG win against Chelsea, I think that's a good way to start the pre-Halloween, I guess, festivities to get it started on the right foot for the fall.
it's good to have realistic expectations always, Dan. So it's good to
I'm
see that
always
you're
realistic, be high. We can win the quad every year.
indeed. I see that every season. But hey, one of these years, maybe one of these years, someone's gonna be right, and they won't shut up ever, and I wouldn't want them to. And yes, good to meet Craig. I probably should have started with that. Craig's on his debut tonight, so give it up for him as well. Make sure to not comment on the Batman. How should I put it? Altar behind him.
Well,
Yeah, all good, all good. Okay. Um, what I wanted, I saw a comment here somewhere. Yeah, regarding the NFL, I think Dan's got is gonna know more, or can give us more opinions on this. I know Sunday NFL is like a big thing there in the States, so I'm not. There's supposed to be lots of games or something like that. So yeah, good to provide an alternative, I guess. Even though, do a lot of people in Europe follow that? I don't even know, but anyways, Patricio, man, how about you?
Hi, mate. Yeah, all good, thanks. Just waiting for the international break to be over and to start watching matches again. Trent scored a free kick tonight, which was really nice, top left corner. Um, yeah, it's weird that seeing him play on the left-hand side of the pitch, though, you know, seeing him operate as that sort of left sort of false back, wing back. But yeah, no, it's good to see him play. Like, get to see him get some minutes. And yeah, just excited to smash Chelsea on the weekend. Be good.
Yeah, but remember, he cannot defend, so that's kind of the thing. You cannot have nice things.
the
Um,
England would take the world's best right back and play him left back.
I mean, if it works, hey, it worked against Finland. Can you say
That's the standard, isn't it? It's
yeah?
The mighty Titans of football, Finland. Helsinki is the bastion of football. Rome, Paris, Madrid. They have nothing on Helsinki.
No.
Listen, Finland's a beautiful country. I'm not knocking it,
It
but
is.
listen, I can't argue with the genius of Gareth Southgate.
Indeed. But you know what? If I may, I know you all hate the international break. I do as well, to be honest. But it's gotten a lot better since Romania has been relegated to League C in Nations League, because now we get to win every game and score 3+. So that's kind of, haven't had that in like ever in my life. So it's all good at the moment for me in terms of international football. But yeah, when really, to be honest, I just think, I feel so bad for someone like Trent, because if he was mentioned, let's get into it a bit. I just, someone who's a generational talent being used as a left back or a DM I cannot understand how can you have so many world class players and cannot find a system in which they work. But yeah, seems like I'm not the only one happy. You smashed Congo 5-0. Well, it's a good evening then for for everyone. We play Lithuania on Tuesday as well, so that's a big one. But before we're going to discuss any more of this international football, we're going to try and get into our topic for the evening as well. So, as I said, at the beginning of the season, there's been quite a lot of talk about transfers, about us not necessarily having enough depth in some areas, specifically, I believe, defense and midfield. Dan, I know you've been on, how should I put it? I know you've always been lenient with our owners, you being from Boston. There's no surprise, obviously, but you've seen to mentioned, you've also mentioned a few times that you get, is it a monthly paycheck or is it like every 3 months now?
I never said a paycheck. I said a sandwich check. So I get free
So
sandwiches, free street meat down at the local Fenway Park every
you
day.
get something in return at least.
I
So
know. I mean, I still have to pay for it, but it's something. It's free. It's free. It's free in my mind. So
I
as
get
long as it's free and conceptually, it's free in reality. Ignore the $15 I have to spend on it.
moving away from sandwiches. Then I'd ask you about center back specifically, because I believe this was a pretty big topic in the summer as well. I don't necessarily recall your views on this from the summer, but I would gladly listen to them again. I still believe that signing a center back was necessary in the summer, and I think I'd still have another one now. I would say it's difficult to get a good one in the winter, but the last time we got last time we got a pretty good center back, I think in 2017, was it right in December, end of December, I think. But yeah, I'm gonna let you have your thoughts on that. So
Yeah, I mean, so we signed Virgil van Dijk December 2017, January of 2018. For me, the center back question has always been a loaded question because there are so many other things that are tacked on into it. So a lot of people want a center back that can play left back because they don't rate Robertson or Simicast, which is fine if you don't rate Simicast. If you don't rate Robertson, I kind of question what do you want your fullback to do, because Robertson is a perfectly fine left back. I don't think he's any worse than Dallo or Calafiore. I mean, I really don't think he's even worse than Calafiore, even though people like Calafiore because he's a handsome Italian. He's not worse than Udogi, though I would love if I had Destiny Udogi because I think he's a very good left back at Tottenham. Simicast is obviously the one you can improve on, but that's the biggest question is, do you want a center back that can play left side and left back? And also there's the question of Van Dijk's contract. So you have these multi-layered things you have to figure out within that. I also think there's a degree of people that don't rate Joe Gomez and Jerome Kwanzaa. And so in your mind, if you're saying, okay, I don't rate Joe Gomez, I don't rate Jerome Kwanzaa, means we only have two good center backs and one's leaving, I've created a scenario in my head where we need a center back now. I think that our defensive depth in general is actually pretty solid. We have two right backs, two left backs, and four center backs. Any other year, any other time frame that we're thinking of, that would be perfectly acceptable. We won the league with four center backs: Van Dijk, Lovren, Gomez, and Matip. And our right back was Trent and Nico, and our left back was Robertson and Milner. That was our left backs that we used. Or actually, I even think we used Nico Williams as our left back as well. So we've won the league with 7 defenders, 8 defenders. We don't need 9 or 10 in order to win the league. It's just that people look at, say, City, who have 8 defenders, but there's 7 of them are center backs, and Arsenal, who have 8 defenders, seven of which are center backs. Actually, I think all of them are center backs, technically, because Timber. Is there anyone that's a traditional Zinchenko? Zinchenko's the one who's a midfielder in that situation. So for me, the center back question has always been opportunity and who do you want? Who is the profile you're looking at? Because you're not going to get a Virgil van Dijk part 2. There is no Virgil van Dijks in the market as it currently situates. The one we were linked to, Lenny Euro, he was young. His contract was up, so you could get a good deal on him, and he could bridge. I think you already mentioned the thing. He could bridge that gap between your reserves and your starting squad. However, I think we need to understand here that you kind of want there to be a gap. You're not going to have a perfect situation where you're going to have 5 center backs and it's perfectly tiered from those setups. And also, Nat Phillips is still at Liverpool. I just have to remind everyone. At least I'm pretty sure he's still at Liverpool. I'm double checking that right now. No, actually, he went
He's
on
on loan again.
He went on loan to Derby County. I completely forgot that happened. You're right. But anyways, my point still being is that we have 4 solid center backs. If you're buying a center back, you're buying a center back in order to replace Van Dijk in the future. So it's a temporarily you go to 9 and then you shrink back down to 8. And I think that's what Arne Slot wants to. So for me, was it a priority? I think you can make it a priority. This has always been my thing with this summer versus our previous summer, is that you can make an argument for any position. And they bought Federico Chiesa and Georgi Mamadashvili. I think both were smart buys. They solve problems because Allison is obviously injured. Kelleher is going to go eventually. They obviously don't think Kelleher is the long-term solution. That could change, obviously. And obviously with Allison getting injured more than you would want your starting goalkeeper to be, I think they were both smart buys. Chiesa is he can play on the right, the left, the middle. He can play all across the attacking front 4, 3, however you want to structure it. So I think those were 2 very smart buys. But if you thought 2 years ago we needed a center back when we had the same team minus Joel Matip, then that thought process has continued on to today and this past summer. In terms of the center backs that we didn't sign, my problem is that Lukeba, I think he's fine. I don't think he's out of this world. Gonzalo Ignacio, I think he's fine, but I don't think he's out of this world. And if you're buying him to play left back, he doesn't play left back. Again, we can argue positions and everything else, but that's not what he plays. And so it really comes down to the fact that if I'm working in Liverpool's data and scouting department, or if I'm working at, in this very minor fan capacity, there's no one I look at that I'm like, that's who's the person we need to go buy. Now, someone behind the scenes might say it's Nico Schlotterbeck, it's this one center back, whoever they've looked out to the market and analyzed, this is the person we want. But for me, I look and there's no outstanding candidates. You could make an argument from buying Lukeba to Mark Gahey, and they're both equally valued arguments to me because I think they're fine. The problem is do the deals make sense? Mark Gahey never made sense as a deal, and I'm going to stand by that even if he goes on to win a Champions League with Crystal Palace or Chelsea buy him or something, or Arsenal buy him or City buy him or whoever buys him. Or no one buys him and Crystal Palace win a Premier League and Champions League double and go on to win all the trophies with their £500 million talent pool of Adam Wharton, Ebritzi Eze, and Mark Gahey. I just don't, there's no one that sticks out to me. The only one I would rate that I've always kind of wanted is Nico Schlotterbeck because he is a left back, left center back, left side center back. But I don't know if that deal makes sense or if he is consistent. He's not consistent enough at Dortmund, and that Dortmund team's not consistent enough. So would he make more sense for Liverpool? So that's kind of my thoughts on center back position in general. I just think we're all traumatized from the fact that Virgil van Dijk got injured and we only had 7 defenders, but we're not in that reality at this moment. We have 8 very good defenders.
I think whenever I think about a center back position, always just the PTSD from the 2021 season comes back, and I always feel like we don't have enough center backs. I look at this. So I get what you were saying, and I get what Muse was saying in the comments as well regarding minutes. You do have Virgil van Dijk, who's probably going to play almost almost every game in the league and in the Champions League as well. You're gonna have Konate, you have Kwanzaa, who's he's been a lot better than anyone expected him to be ever since last season. Gomez as well, who can play center back. The counter argument, obviously, I think, is injuries, and our center backs aren't necessarily made of stone. How can I put it? I feel like both Konate and Gomez have picked up injuries, and it's you have one major injury and you're left with three. And if one of the three is Konate, then you cannot rely on him to play every 3 days for like, I don't know, a month or two. So then it kind of gets complicated, and that's why I feel like signing a center back, someone who's still developing, someone who could accept maybe getting the odd game in the league, the odd game in the Champions League, and then the cup games as well, I think would have been maybe a bit more of a, how do I put it, sensible decision. I guess time will tell. I'm still on the fence. I would still believe though that yeah, I would have been a bit more relaxed with another center back in the team, considering all the points.
So before we move on to everyone else, because I know they don't want to hear me yap the whole time, two quick things. One, I agree that we'd all be more comfortable. Two, if any team loses one of their top center backs, their starting center backs, they would all be in a bad position. If Gabriel got injured, Arsenal would be in a very bad position. If Stones at City got injured, who when he has been injured now without Rodri, they would be in a bad position. If Tottenham lost Mickey Van de Ven, they're doomed because they have Dragusin there, and I know Dragusin is the pride of Romania, but I don't think he's a top 4 center back in the Premier League. But that's just my opinion. I am very open to being wrong about that. And on top of the Bastoni, was it? I'm wrong about that, Mihai? So, and the thing about Bastoni is, I know he's the one everyone likes. He's always playing a back 3, so it's the same problem with Gonzalo Ignacio. And again, I think Bastoni is a great defender, but is he someone that's going to work in the system? And that's why I'm saying I don't know. And also, he's going to cost half the club from Inter Milan because
he's not going to accept playing so little.
Yeah, exactly. So you're only buying Alessandro Bastoni if you're not signing Virgil van Dijk, or if you're selling Joe Gomez. And at that point, you have, what are you left with? I think Braithwaite is a good player. Jared Braithwaite, I think he is a very decent, good player, but Everton aren't going to sell him. So you're stuck in this position of who's available, who fits a profile, and who fits the situation. And again, I still stand by the fact that I think Nico Schlotterbeck is probably the most one that fits that profile in a 4, a 3, and a left back because he's done all of them. But again, you're going to get him from Dortmund. All right, I'll let you move on to everyone else now.
I will. But before that, yeah, I believe we should address Muse's comment here as well. I think Matip. Now, I'm not sure. I would say he was underrated with us in his time with us. I believe in that 21-22 season when we won for the quadruple, I feel like Matip was probably our best center back. I think he was better than Van Dijk that season. Him going on adventures every 30 minutes with a ball at his feet is always going to be in my memory. So yeah, Joel Matip, another amazing defender, and another one who did have his injury problems, but we're going to relate that to our topic as well. Yeah, so Patricio, how do you see this whole thing, and how would you respond to Dan believing that we're all good with the 4 defenders that we have, center backs? Sorry.
I've always been in the sort of mindset that like I don't want Simicast playing at left back anymore. Obviously, in Klopp's system, I don't think he fits at all. in slot system. He's a little bit better. He likes to attack a bit more, but I just feel like defensively he's just not as adept as Robertson is. I even feel more confident having Joe Gomez at left back than I do Simicast. I even think Gomez does better on the fullback positions than he does as centre back. Personally, I think signing someone like, obviously before he went, Patrick would have been good. Someone like a Hincapié, Ignacio, someone who is versatile and can go along the back four. I know we couldn't do it last season because of the whole thing with Feyenoord, and obviously the manager coming over, so he didn't want to bring any players over. But I think um, what was the right back he had there again? I can't remember his name. I had it in my head.
Gertruda.
Yeah, good true.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, he could play across the whole back four, and I think he would have been a good signing for us. I do think maybe in slot system we don't need someone like an Eight Nouri or a Robinson, but we do need someone who can defend, especially if Trent is going to continue to potentially push into midfield or go out on the wings, like when the team compresses in. So yeah, I feel like there's a smart buy to get Mamadashvili, especially with the club preempting what might happen to Allison with his hamstring injuries. Chiesa was a bit more like, we do need a Salah replacement, but I didn't see it as Chiesa, especially with the injury, like how prone he is to injuries. But hopefully he can get into some form. He's definitely constantly smiling at the club, so it'd be nice to see him score for us and at Anfield. That'd be quite nice. Yeah, in terms of like centre backs, I think I've said everything I could say about it. To be fair, I mean, last season, if we were to stay with Klopp, I would have said maybe get like a Diamande, because then that we would have like a more solid centre back, sort of more like an out and out defender than someone that's going to carry and progress with the ball a bit. But yeah, so that's sort of my views on it.
Fair enough. And this comment from you here, I think it gets close to what I was thinking as well. That's someone who I would have liked to see maybe in the summer, someone who's younger, someone who would have accepted to play a bit less, especially for 1 or 2 seasons, and then we'll reassess, because that's what I don't know. I get like I get what Dan said regarding other teams would struggle if they had their center backs injured, but I don't know. I just look at things and it wouldn't seem out of the ordinary to see Konate out for a month and Gomez out for a month at the same time, and then it gets tricky. But yeah, well, I guess we'll see. Craig, is
Hello?
Ford enough?
Thank you for letting me have my debut. Hopefully it goes down as like a Luis Suarez type one rather than Jonathan Woodgate. But time will tell. First of all, I was kind of thinking about what Leicester put on the comment of the drop down in quality from our first 11 to reserves. And I was just jotting down as everyone was talking then, if you kind of like take our first, and hopefully this doesn't happen, but if our first 11 were out of action, you're looking at what? Kelleher, Bradley, Gomez, Quanta, Simicast, Endo, Morton, Jones, Chiesa, Nunes, Gakpo. And that doesn't get you in the Champions League. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but you can't walk into going for a title with, obviously Gravenberch has had like such a revelation this season, hasn't he? He's been unbelievable. I know we were looking at centre backs, I'll come to that in a minute, but Gravenberch has been unbelievable. Loads were excited when we got him in the first place, weren't we? It's similar to, if we go back to his Ajax days. Bayern kind of misused them, didn't they? They just threw him in. I think they threw him in one fixture. They put him left wing. And you just kind of think to yourself, what on earth are they doing to such a quality player? He's just thriving on the slot, isn't he?
It's what
But I think a
Bayern.
little bit that's what's that? Sorry,
It's what Bayern do.
it's just what Bayern do. But I think he can't get out looking, can he? The lad from Fulham, Pallister. He can't really get a look in at the moment anyway. But anyway, Gravenberch just been a revelation. I don't think it's luck rather than design. Obviously, Slot's done brilliant for him. But touch wood, he doesn't, and he takes a knock. Then who goes in? Sitting in that CDM slot. So you could go like Morton, give him a chance. Thank you, Paul. Hello. Your CDM slots. I don't know. I really don't know now what we do when
Endo.
Gravenberch. He's not.
And also,
Jones.
He's not.
and
He's
also
not.
Harvey.
He's not. Well, he's out for. How long is Elliot out for?
He should be back. I think he'll probably be back around this time after this
And
international
I
break. 'Cause
wouldn't even as a CDM, you wouldn't really.
Oh no,
Wouldn't really
I'm saying
put him anywhere
Harvey.
near there, would you?
I'm
And
saying Harvey as the 10 and Jones
yeah,
as the 6.
as a 10. Don't get me wrong. That the end of the last season, he was quality, wasn't he? We never got in that England's Southgate, I suppose, is the reason why. But then you kind of look at the CDM type roles and you think that was so understocked. And I think we probably put all our eggs in one basket with Zubamendi, who, by the sound of it, looked like he was on his way. And then obviously he got then power points of Paella in that, and then just decided to stay. But then, so that concerns me greatly. I think we massively need to strengthen there in this January ideally, but maybe the start Sociedad means the Zubamendi one could be a goer again. The centre back positions scare me as well. So obviously you kind of look at kind of like Van Dijk, in our eyes is perfect, isn't he? But at the same time, how old is he now? 33. Slightly concerning. Gomez dropped off massively, didn't he, over the last couple of seasons? Quansah, quality, but is hit and miss because of his age, and that's always going to happen, isn't it? And I think through the spine of the team, which should be kind of like built on, there's a concern, isn't there? Centre back, CDM, Szoboszlai, hit and miss this season. Look, quality, been missing at times, and Nunez, and that's our spine. And if you throw into that Alisson, the quality sign that we made in Mamadashvili to kind of, I didn't see it at the time. I was thinking, no, I love Alisson, but now I see it. Now I see why we got Mamadashvili in. But you look at our entire spine, and it does leave you a little bit anxious, really. Ideally, they all have a quality season, stay fit and whatever, but you're only like a Jordan Pickford losing his head flying out at one of your centre backs moment away from losing one. I'm excited about Chiesa. I think he's come in. He looks like a hothead, doesn't he? Just kind of the first touch he had in a Liverpool shirt, he shot from 35 yards. I like that. I think our left wing position is pretty much nailed down. Gakpo and Diaz are just battling for that. Right back in Trent and Bradley, quality. But there's probably a bit of gaps to really go for the title.
Yeah, and that's why that's kind of what I was thinking as well. If we want to have the best chances of going for it for the league, let's say, or for the Champions League, major trophy. Well, I know the FA Cup's a major trophy as well, but let's just stay on these two. This is what I was saying. I feel like in a lot of moments we are kind of close to getting a bit anxious over who do we play and where do we play him. I feel like that's my thoughts on center back, and as you kind of touched on, that's pretty much our next topic, the DM position, which we've discussed now for a year and a half on streams. So I can understand a lot of different points of view on this topic. I do understand that maybe there's not a lot of DMs available right now. Zubimendi wasn't one of the names that we even thought about when discussing DMs, so that's kind of my counter argument to that, is that if you scout well enough, there's always something that's kind of close and that's almost ideal to what you're looking for. It can never be perfect, but then if it's close enough, then you can make it work. Especially, if you have the manager's, head coach's approval of the player. I feel like you look at things, and as Craig said, Gravenberch this season has been unreal. Like I believe he probably should have gotten Player of the Month for September with his performances, and well, up until now, definitely our Player of the Season. But then you kind of look at the way things are going. So you have Gravenberch there at DM working a lot better than anyone else expected. It could have gone wrong, and then the conversation around DM would have been entirely different now as of this stream. But he is doing great, so thank God for that. And now we have McAllister next to him in a double pivot, right? With Soboslai being hit and miss, as Craig said, obviously you're going to think about, would McAllister work better in the 10 role? Who do we play next to? So okay, then we're gonna get to oh good, you're gonna get your chance to speak on that. So me personally, I believe Soboslai in the 10 role has a lot, his work rate is a lot better than Maka's would be, and I think that's a bit underrated in his play. But when I look at things, and I believe, let's say you want to put Maka in the 10 position, who do you play next to Gravenberch? You're going to play Jones, probably. That's going to probably be your first choice in a double pivot. But then, is Jones a 6? If he's not, then you're again making compromises. You're compromising and using a player in a position that's not his. And then we're circling back to this point again. We should have probably signed another DM. And this is kind of how I view this. Now, I get that it might work perfectly. Gravenberch, Maka, Soboslai, who can play Elliot when he comes back. And they may all have great seasons with no injuries whatsoever. And then we're going to, reassess in June or whatnot. But when I look at this, it just feels like, especially in midfield, maybe even more than defense, it looks like we're one injury away from it being a very complicated situation. Because then, if let's say, I know Dan, you were saying it, and I know we've discussed previously that Morton could be another option there in 6. But how do we trust Morton to play in the Champions League or in the Premier League against, let's say, top 10 opposition at this time? Obviously talented, but if you look at the Kwanzaa situation as well, you have another player who's great, but again, hit and miss, as Craig said, understandably because of his age, but he is hit and miss. So then, where do we stand on this? Dan, I know you're gonna you patiently waited to turn on your mic, so
No, I mean, I think Craig brings up a good point. I don't know if I would go so far as say it's not Champions League. I do think I think it's equivalent to, so if that team on paper, Endo, Morton, let's say Jones, just because Harvey is injured, Nunez, Chiesa, and Gakpo, with Bradley, Gomez, Kwanzaa, and Simicast. For me, I mean, I think the floor of that team is like 6. I think the ceiling of that team would be 6 for that backline with Kelleher. And again, that's just saying that, like, compared to other starting 11s. Now, in that case, when you have 11 players out, that is a season that is, you're talking about an injured team that has never happened before. This is on the level of a Munich disaster, and I don't mean this be flippant. I mean it's that level of a disaster where 11 players just stop playing. So I do agree with Craig in the sense that obviously the ways you could improve that team are midfield and left back. I think are the more obvious. I think Kwanzaa and Gomez. I don't, Craig, you disagree with that? You think midfield and left back are not the obvious ones? Because that's why I think you could improve like the depth as left back and midfield. And that side, in the backup side, you bring out. Where do you think it would be?
For that backup 11.
Yeah.
So where's the kind of gap? Like, where's the biggest gap?
Yeah, in your mind. For me, it's left back.
CDM, innit?
Okay,
It's
so
CDM
midfield.
because I think Simicast can still do a job. I
Okay.
know, as Patricio said before, he kind of fits. I know, Patricio, you're not his biggest fan, but he puts a shift in, doesn't he? He puts a shift in. When he has his good days, he can put his foot on the ball. Problem is that to be a left back in an Arnie slot team, you need to just feel completely comfortable with a striker or forward running at you. And Simicast isn't. He just he panics, doesn't he? He looks nervous. So yeah, you're right, left back. I mean, obviously we've all got ideas who you bring in. I'd go for Aït-Nouri, even though I know he might not be everyone's favorite, but I really really like him. But I'd probably go for like CDM. It's kind of quick. I mean, scared about
Yeah.
it now. let alone if it was the kind of a second 11.
So here's the thing, and here's the thing about that midfield position. When people have, I know it's already been mentioned in the chat a few times. I'm sure some people think similarly. When Zubimendi got linked, because I did a American stream on it, I wasn't like that all in on him because I was like, he's fine. Like he's great at nothing, good at everything. His profile is very similar to I didn't mean to flip it away. I said it's very similar to Curtis Jones, someone who's good on the ball, good in the tackle, good at turning and receiving the ball, which Jones is good at. I don't know where this anti-Curtis Jones thing comes in. I think it's people are very the bias towards Curtis Jones is very fascinating to me because it's always someone that's English and plays for the team. It was Henderson for years. It was Genie Wijnaldum for years. Before them, it was Joe Allen, who was fine. I want to say this. I'm not saying we should buy Joe Allen or Joe Allen was great, but Joe Allen was fine. For me, the question of Mihai, you asked, does Morton come in? Well, yeah, Morton's played in Champions League for Liverpool, gone to the San Siro against like Frank Kessie, who people wanted to bring in on a free, and he's played in our midfield when everyone had COVID against Tottenham. Now that was the 2-2 when I think Linders was the manager, and Kane should have been sent off, and I think Robinson got sent off. So that was just a mad game, and he was way younger and way less developed as a footballer. So I think Morton's perfectly capable of being a defensive mid or being as part as a double pivot for, let's say, 4 or 5 games on the bounce. Now the question is, do you want him against City? The obvious answer is no, but you may not have that choice because of where City lies in this run. And that's where it becomes, who do you want to start in a hypothetical winner-takes-all match against Manchester City? You want Gravenberch, McAllister. I would argue, I think most people would say Salah. I would say Nunez over Jota, but that's just me because Jota is very good off the bench. And I would say Diaz. That would be my 3 who I would start an attack with someone like McAllister, Grab, and pretty much the team we've been playing, essentially. That would be the team I'd want against City. Obviously, Alisson's injured, so we can't have him. Winner takes all match, I would put him out there. However, it's football, so you don't get that option. I think Morton as your 7th choice midfielder is perfectly fine. I don't think he's worse than Endo. I think Wataru Endo is fine. I just think that with Wataru Endo, he's not as good as a double pivot as he is as a lone 6. So in my mind, that is the area we can improve on, but it's not you're adding depth, it's at your quality. So if you had let's say we bought Martin Zubimendi in, the mountain man Shagger himself, Martin Zubimendi from San Sebastian with the paellas and those wonderful mountain peaks. They should have put a restaurant there called Twin Peaks for Martin to name it after him. If Zubimendi came in, then Endo would have been the 7th choice, and Morton probably would have been sold or loaned. Or you could have sold Endo and Morton, and then your 6 midfielders would have been Zubimendi, Elliott, Soboslai, Jones, McAllister, Gravenberch. So you would have had 6 midfielders for 3 positions, so everyone would have gotten game time, and your drop-off would be Trey Neoni. I actually don't mind that Morton is still there and they still have Trey, both of which have not gotten significant game time because they're perfectly fine to play in FA Cups and League Cup games. So for me, the problem with defensive midfield is not it has everything to do with profile, because all I hear all and over again is we want a DM profile, and I'm like, what is a DM profile to you? Because they massively diverge. Gravenberch and Rodri are one type of DM. They're someone that is very good on the half turn. I would actually say Gravenberch is much better on the half turn. Rodri is very good on the ball and positioning himself to win the ball back, but he's much better front, shoulders facing the goal, as in he has the ball and you're pinning the opposition in. You don't want Rodri turning around and running back to stop a counterattack. That's why Pep Guardiola designed the Man City team the way he did, with essentially 4 center backs, 2 DMs, and 4 forwards to maximize Rodri's strengths and not his weaknesses. So Rodri is great on the ball, but he's not going to be he would not look great in Manchester United. He would look terrible like Casemiro has. So that's one type with like Brian Gravenberch. Another type is that you have someone like a Paulinho. Now, Joao Paulinho is a perfectly good footballer, good on the dribble, good in possession, okay in possession and really good at covering and winning tackles. Now, the problem with Joao Paulina is you're not going to build an attack from front to back with Joao Paulina. Joao Paulina is someone that wins the ball, passes to the other person that can pass the ball, and then they go long or direct. So you're kind of stuck between these two. This is very, what's the word I'm looking for? Synthetic. This is a very arbitrary distinction I'm kind of making with this profile. But where do you want in terms of a midfielder like that? Because Zubimendi is kind of right in the middle, where he's a little good on the half turn, very good on the cover, good at the passing, but he's not the most amazing. And he then, within all the midfielders, you can place them on that spectrum. So for me, it really comes down to what type of midfielder you're looking for, because they're not going to get a Joao Paulina. At least I don't think so. That's not where most footballers are at. You can look at Thomas Partey at Arsenal, who is, I would argue, their weakest player, and among other things that he has is, not. I don't think he should be there for a lot of other reasons. Declan Rice is holding that midfield together with his legs, but what happens when Declan Rice gets a knock or an injury, or he just gets a little bit slower? So for me, I'm all for getting another midfielder, but that midfielder doesn't necessarily have to be either Rodri or Paulinho. They can have a mix of those attributes. And the problem is there are so many players out there like that. Who do you think actually fits that role to a level that you want to challenge for the league? Because Mateus Nunes, at City was not ranked by Guardiola, did not rate him, and everyone wanted to buy him. Kovacic is there, but he's barely holding it on together. So who really is out there right now that could do that? We wanted Andre Trindade. I think he's been fine at Wolves, but I wouldn't want him, starting, 4 or 5 games for Liverpool against like City, United, Chelsea, all that stuff. Manuel Ugarte just looks like a bulldog at United. I don't think he's going to come good. Lavia, people are going to mention Romeo Lavia. He hasn't played. He hasn't played any games. So people are talking about Romeo Lavia like he's a or rematch of Claude Makelele. No, James, you're getting the whole thing. You're getting all this. I haven't been on enough streams in a while, so I got to answer everything. I got to answer all the questions. And then finally, we come to Dominic Szoboszlai, who the problem is that people at the 10 want a Mesut Ozil when what Slot has done with that 10 is that he uses it more like an 8 than a 10, and that Szoboszlai has been very good out of possession, but what he's lacked is being in possession, and that in possession products such as assists and goals. And that's perfectly fine to be. We want more assist and goals from Dominic Szoboszlai. Slots mentioned it. I'm sure Dom himself knows that he needs to get more of the assist and goals out of the team. And yes, thank you, Paul. Listen, I haven't gone longer than 5-6 minutes at this point, and Steve is much worse than me. So for me, Szoboszlai, in terms of what we're doing in that 10 role, you can modify it. I don't think Macker would be as good out of possession, but he might be better in possession when you get more goals and assists. Okay, Mihai, I'll pass it back to you.
Cheers. Good. What were we talking about again? Okay.
DMs.
DMs. Good.
DM me, Mihai. DM me, Mihai. I haven't heard from you in a while.
Fair enough. Good. What's happening with Isak? Had him at the beginning of the season in FPL. Then didn't really get service, did he? Don't recognize him from last season. So curious to hear on that. But yeah, going back to DMs. Patricia, I'm just gonna let you take the mic, and maybe we're gonna go. I'm gonna have my thoughts again at the end.
I just want to break down sort of what Dan said a bit, things that I kind of agree with and sort of things I don't really. I think Maka is out and out. He has to be that 8. Yes, you can see him as a 10, and he'd probably make a great 10. Part of me was a bit upset when we sold Fabio Carvalho. I think he could have done well in that 10 role. I would have liked to see him there at least one season. So I think that he could have stayed. Obviously, I would like to see Harvey Elliott when he's back from injury, because I think he thrives as a 10, not so much on the right wing, but also as a 10. And then I was a bit confused as well when we loaned out by Bajcetic. I would have kind of preferred to loan out Morton and keep Bajcetic just to play him in games and stuff for rest Gravenberch. And obviously, going into this season, we didn't know how Gravenberch was going to be, and obviously he's excelled. and I hope he continues to do so. He's in great form. Now, I think at the time we were stressing, saying we want Zubimendi. He's this out and out amazing player who will transform this team. And I think, in a way, I agree with Dan. Is that yes, Paulinho would have been sort of like a Fabinho type of player, and I think that's more suited to like a Klopp team. You know, when they had the one DM, two centre mids. I think in this with the two centre mid CDMs and then a cam, I think it is better suited to like a Zubimendi, to like Gravenberch, who can take the ball, progress with it. And I would have potentially, like, I know Trinidad, Andre Trinidad, we were looking at him like, what was it, a season or two ago? Like, we proper wanted him. Obviously, Dan mentioned Lavia, Caicedo. I think with Gravenberch, I think yes, you saw like something special in him when he joined the club, and he said that one of his best abilities is his technical ability on the ball, and you're seeing that now. You're seeing that version of him. Whereas I think when Klopp had him, he played him more as an eight, and that wasn't sort of his best role for him. So I'm excited to see what happens in January, whether upset Twin Peaks Paella man comes over, or whether he stays there and or goes to City or whatever his plan may be. And if he goes to City, then he can pretty much kiss his career goodbye. But I'm not going to answer that. I did see someone mentioned about someone like a Guimaraes type player. I know that Geordie commented. I feel like someone like a Guimaraes would do amazing, but it's just giving those players that game time. Like, would Zubimendi be alright with like taking minutes back with Gravenberch playing, especially with the form Gravenberch is in? Would he be fine with it? But the thing is, though, you just don't want to injured six and then what you do, Endo and Morton, or Jones. Yeah, I don't really know how I've added to that part, to be honest. But hopefully that's a position that I think is pivotal, is getting someone to sort of be back up to Gravenberch, and then we can sort out the centre back, left back positions for the summer. Granted, there's no injuries.
Yeah, I was thinking the whole news about Zubimendi joining City. Now that would be like a shit show, wouldn't it? It's just what's frustrating. You can't even blame our recruitment team, because it's like he decided to stay at Sociedad, so it's not like we could have done any, offered him bigger contract or whatnot. It's just that now he has second thoughts, so that's just absolutely fucking amazing with the timing. But yeah, it is what it is. So Craig, as you said a bit earlier, you're also let's say worried on the DM position. Do we have enough depth then?
I think both Dan and Patrice both said, didn't they? I think like the six role, the Klopp, and for the Slot are just completely different, aren't they? They're just completely different roles. I think that the six for Slot, you could easily wheel off, and the chat could easily wheel off 15 of them now. The Destroyer that just breaks play up, moves it on. You could go Fabinho, you could work your way through. Paulinho isn't getting a game at Bayern. You could go through the Premier League, probably take a couple of them there. I'm not saying, I just think that Hendo effectively played the role for a significant period of time, didn't he? I think just being able to pick the ball up and play it across. Now, I'm not saying that isn't a hard job, Blumenau. If it was that easy, we'd all be doing it, wouldn't we? It's obviously a proper hard role. But that's not what Slot demands, is it, of a six? And that makes it even more kind of like complex of who you bring in. I just wrote down to the side there of like sixes you'd look at. Obviously Zubimendi. And I think anyone thought he was going to leave Sociedad. And then when Paul Joyce broke with a tweet of that we were interested, I kind of like lost my shit thinking this is like the best signing ever. And then when it was kind of going a bit rocky, I thought didn't want him anyway. But when you kind of like think about it, Zubimendi would have been absolutely amazing for the style of play that we're seeing now. Foot on the ball, looks up, quick 5-10 yard passes, can move into free space just to move up the pitch. Fabinho would never have done that. He would have been like towing a caravan, wouldn't he? Really, in terms of trying to do that. Guimaraes, I had written down as well. He's like, you could see that working, couldn't you? I know there's a Geordie in the chat. He probably isn't going to be impressed, but you could kind of see that working. Adam Wharton. So when you see him play, I could see that as well. But the problem is that every Premier League game he plays is lashing another £5 million on his price tag, innit? He looks quality. His passing's unreal. Like his range is just unreal. And he's got that engine, that Hendo engine, that you can kind of like see him doing really well in that position. And I can't think any more off the top of it. You look at Andre at Wolves, he wouldn't fit now for what we're doing. It wouldn't work for how he's trying to play. We've got Endo. So that wouldn't quite work. Other ones that we've potentially missed out on in the past. What's the shops that went to United? I always forget the name of it from Paris Saint-Germain, Ugarte.
Yeah,
Um, Yeah, was never going to work anyway. I would have been concerned of him coming as a 6 under Klopp because he just can't see peripheral sight, can he? He just runs in lines, and I just think would just easily he'd just be easily passed round. I think it's going to be interesting in January because I don't think we can leave the 6 for another 6 months. I don't think we're going to be able to do it. But the second that we do that, the price tag's going to absolutely skyrocket. But then you go back to a conversation about the owners.
Can I just add? I think we're also like there was talks about like Chouameni as well. I know we were interested in like 2 seasons ago, but I don't know like
Troy,
how much that's rumors or how much that's
Yeah, and then that's
No.
why Real are playing him at centre back at the minute. I know they're obviously short of cover at centre back at the moment, but at the same time, he's a destroyer. You don't really
But
see him.
Okay, Craig, sorry.
No, go on.
No, I was gonna say. So I think we already have our Chouameni. It's Ryan Gravenberch. Like Chouameni, I know what you're saying. Like he has that destroying aspect, but his ball playing is ridiculous. Like Chouameni was the quote unquote Fabinho replacement, and then Fabinho. I take your point that Fabinho was very much a build from a destroying and moving the ball, but Fabinho's on the ball play was really good. When his ball play was not good, it was when Liverpool were not good. So we very much built around Fabinho's ability to win the ball and play the ball. I would think Ryan is much better on the ball in general, especially as a dribbler, as a progressive carrier. But yeah, no, I mean, I was just trying to say that we have Chouameni's replacement. It's Ryan Gravenberch. At least this interpretation of Ryan Gravenberch.
until
look at someone
injuries
like
may
Gravenberch.
creep up. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, you look at Gravenberch and his age as well.
Oh
Like
yeah, it's
proper young
ridiculous.
as well, isn't he? He's just gonna build into that role even more. I can see there's a couple of kind of messages going on about Wharton and how he was kind of like het up by Gravenberch recently in terms of when we played them. Yeah, he is a kid though. So we're kind of talking about kind of bringing in people to the 11 to blood them into what we want to do, and all the ingredients of Adam Wharton look quality, and you pay quality prices. Um, like I say, in January it's gonna be interesting whether Zubamendi has had enough paella to decide he wants to leave and try something else, and if he does, will it be City after Rodri?
I,
And then I
I
really don't know. Guimaraes had that kind of release clause in his contract, didn't he? It was a ridiculous something like £100 billion release clause.
yeah, because he has at
Not billion.
Newcastle. Yeah, not a billion. I think it's like 100 million. I think City will probably at least try with
Yeah.
Mendy to see how he does. I do think the problem with Adam Morton is that Palace are going to demand extraordinary money for him. And this has kind of always been Palace's problem is that they get these good players and then they demand outrageous fees and then they just wind down their contracts and go at lower fees. Or your Michael Elise where you get a higher contract but a lower release clause. Because Adam Morton right now is rating at 100 million, and I would not spend 100 million on Adam Morton. I agree that he's a good player and he's very much developing, but I don't see the 100 million. Declan Rice went for 100 million. Moises Caicedo went for 100 million. Those are obviously bloated fees. But by spending 100 million on Declan Rice makes sense because if you're Arsenal, because you're like, oh, this is going to complete our team. It didn't, but that's not the point. Moises Caicedo at Liverpool would have completed that midfield picture and the way Klopp wanted to do it. Or even like 45, what is before they were trying to get Romeo Lavia for, you can understand that. But Adam Morton at 120 mil for this current slot side he's a good player. I don't see how or why you would make that deal when I don't think he's transformative. I think he's better than Morton or Endo and maybe even McAllister at that role. I don't think he's 100 million pounds better, but that's just my opinion on that one.
Oh, fair enough. So yeah, I think it's obviously I'm surprised to look at a timeline. So we're in 55 minutes now since the beginning. Time flew by, to be honest, and we've only discussed two positions. So it kind of shows you the way how much we've accumulated, let's say, in the last 18 months. With what's been going on at Liverpool. So this might be quite actually still interesting to revisit in the future as well. Um, do we think? Yeah, I was honestly. So I get that he needs by Chiticha. I get that he needs time. I get that he needs to play. After his injury, I just would have really liked to keep him at the club. I feel this season, I think he would have provided us with a bit more cover, and I feel like in his first season, if you recall, he was again a lot better than people expected him to be. So if he gets close to that again, I think he can be really good cover, especially now in the double pivot. But obviously, that's the decision that's been made, and yeah. Um, so with that in mind, I think we're gonna end tonight's live stream. So I'm gonna thank Dan, Craig, and Patricio on being here tonight. Thanks to everyone who liked, subscribed. Thanks to everyone in the chat who commented. It's been quite an interesting topic or conversation, let's say. And who knows, maybe let's say in 6 months time we can revisit this with us being 12 points ahead of the second place, and maybe Dan can tell us I've told you so. Hopefully that's going to be the case then.
Great debut, Craig.
Sorry.
It's great debut, Craig.
Can anyone tell me who
Like
this is?
it won't go down as a Joe Cole double-footed lunge in the corner 4 minutes into my debut. That's the line I was after.
Nah. Late super chat. Can anybody tell me who Koku is? He's Turkish, I'm assuming. I don't know who
Yeah,
he's
it's Turkish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't remember what side he. Yeah, can't remember who he played for
Benfica.
before that though.
Fenerbahce,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, I can't remember.
Not quite sure. Yeah, well done, Craig. Indeed. Great debut for you. I've seen you taking notes.
Oh, he was at Feyenoord. Now he's at Benfica. It's another Benfica midfielder, like the other one,
Mhm.
120 million pound player they got. Because they bought him from Feyenoord, and he's one of Slot's old midfielders. That's why they're mentioning him. I mean, he looks decent, but I've never heard of him. So, if anyone wants to become a expert in Orkun Kukcu, somewhat, please tell me more about him later.
So yeah, it's always tough to kind of debate players you've never actually seen. To me, obviously, what I know about him is what I know about a lot of players, a lot of promising players in the Portuguese league that, if it works out, it can be can be a good addition. But then again, you just don't know. I feel like I was really one player that I was really interested in last summer was Florentino Luis playing for Benfica. That didn't work out. So yeah, I feel like you can always find talent in Porto, Benfica, Sporting. It's just whether or not you can get a good price tag and whether or not you can integrate the player into the system that you're playing. So yeah, I think a lot of good points have been made regarding the sixth position and how it's changed in the last 12 months. From under Klopp and now under Slot. Sounded nice that. But yeah. Oh, that's where we're gonna leave it. We're gonna put you on a neck timer then next time. We might get to implement that. Who knows? Who knows? Thanks a lot, Muse. Thanks a lot to everyone in the chat. Don't forget 7:30 p.m. UK time every single day, and also post match streams as well. So thanks to everyone. See you tomorrow, and until then, up the Reds.